All right, good evening, guys. So this is the May 10th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. meeting for the City Community Development and Recreation Committee. Just really quick, Miss Underwood, did you get the document that I sent you of like the editable agenda?
I did, but I don't know how to use that yet. You're gonna have to show me how to use that because
For
I'm a
Google
Generation
Drive?
Xer. So I
Okay.
just retyped it in a Word document because and I'm going to make an effort to sit down so you can show me how to use Google Docs because I'm like so confused about that. So
No problem.
but thank you so much for trying to make it easy for me.
Yeah, I'll try to see if I can send it in a Word doc for next week.
No. How about I'll meet you where you are. I'll come and I'll learn something new.
There we go. All right. I like it. All right. Well, if it's okay with you guys, I don't know if everybody got to look at the agenda, but unless there are any objections. Oh, and then here's Miss Dukestein and Miss Blythe. Hello, guys. Welcome. We haven't really started yet, so you're not late or anything. I hope everybody got to see the agenda. To start off tonight, I kind of wanted to start off with talking about the Homeowners Assistance Fund. I know that it was set up when Miss Bailey was still in office, but Mr. Mosby so kindly brought it to my attention that there wasn't really any parameters around that. So there wasn't really a set amount of how much is being a given or given to assist people who qualifies for the assistance, how much NCH City is willing to help or when they're willing to help. So I was hoping that we could kind of set up some parameters for tonight so that that fund can be properly used. The ideas, I'm going to give you guys my ideas that Mr. Mosby and I kind of talked about and see if you guys want to build off of it or if you guys have any other ideas. We were thinking either, I'm sorry.
I'm curious, did Mr. Mosby send to you the document that when I think Mr. Hedger and Miss Bailey were both working on this during its inception? Yeah, so did he send you that document too?
I didn't even know about a document now.
Okay.
Were there ideas in the document? Because we can just go off of that.
There were. Absolutely.
Okay. Do we want to try to search that document? Do we want to kind of like go?
Yeah, give me a second. I'm looking now.
Oh, no problem. I'll give you a second. Do you want me to move on to number 2 on the agenda so that you don't feel pressured and we can come back to number 1?
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll come back to that then. So the second thing on the agenda then, moving real quick, for the street adoption, Miss Hall and I were talking and she was telling me that Fairfield has a system where businesses in Fairfield can adopt certain streets to help with the cleanliness or the beautification. And we were thinking that it might be nice to kind of set up a similar system in North College Hill. And it could even possibly go sort of hand in hand with the flower pot system that I know another committee's kind of talking about putting together right now, that different businesses or families can adopt that as well. We were kind of thinking, whatever business, Skyline, Kroger, like pays the city X amount of money for basically a sign on that street that says, whatever business, Skyline, Kroger has adopted Clovernal Avenue, whatever, for beautification and, to support beautification or whatever. And we were just kind of talking about that and how possibly the money could go to maybe more support for the volunteer cleanup days, or maybe even more cleanup days. Maybe, it could even go to stuff like landscaping, just different stuff around that kind of area. So I was just wondering if anybody had any ideas or any comments on any of that. I'll take silence as acceptance.
Well, I think that's a great idea, but one of the other things that we talked about, I heard you mention with the Adopt a Pot.
Mm-hmm.
Miss O'Rourke, who was on the committee as well with us,
Yeah.
she had a very interesting idea, and I think it would be good as well. And I think it goes along with the beautification of the city, is that, and these are my words, that we saturate the islands
Okay.
with flowers. The islands on, gosh, I know they planted, Serve and CH planted the tulips and everything, but if we had a different plant that could saturate the islands, and then even the little islands along the business district, I think that would be nice as well if we just cover those with flowers, with those particular type of floral arrangements.
So are you thinking like kind of putting that in with the adopt a pot, adopt a street, adopt an island, kind of like 3 different tiers of it? Like if you're going to adopt a pot, it's going to be X amount. And then if Skyline adopts a pot, they get a little plaque on the pot for like, you know, advertisement for Skyline or whatever. And then tier 2 would be adopt a street. Tier
Some
3.
people might just be more interested in just the islands, you know?
Right.
Right. I mean, that would, if you're trying to give them like some type of signature stamp that says this is maintained by such and so.
Right. Would we want to do it? So then that brings up another point. Would we want to do it that it's like Kroger is maintaining that island and they have somebody to maintain it, or are we doing they pay the city to maintain it?
Well, I think that's something that you would have to decide, because with the pot, the person, we were going to provide the pot, and then they would just have to maintain that pot.
Right. Okay.
Are they small pots or like the large life-size pots in Wyoming?
The large pots.
Got it.
To get a better idea, similar to the ones up in College Hill.
Got it. Okay. I know Wyoming does some too.
And because for the pots, you guys are thinking more like individual families or individual citizens, right? Is that right? Or am I heading down the wrong path?
I couldn't get off mute. In businesses as well.
Okay, so businesses and individuals?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I was thinking more for the street adoption, more businesses. I can't imagine I mean, I could totally be wrong. I personally wouldn't be interested in adopting a street, but I don't know how, you know, families would feel, or other families would feel. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it could be open to anything. I don't think that it's, you know, it has to have that strict of parameters around it, just whoever individual or organization wants to adopt it. So you're thinking the adopt a pot, adopt an island, and adopt a street.
To be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about the adopt a street. I mean,
Okay.
I would need a little bit more information on that. I think for the most part, the people who really care about their streets, they've already adopted them. They go up and down and clean them.
Right.
You see them, I know back here where we are, it's the same couple of couples every other day.
Right. Well, because I was thinking of it from more of a like funding standpoint of like, you know, a source of kind of funding for the cleanup days and stuff. And, you know, if we can get a couple hundred here or there from a business adopting a street that could pay for, the pizza at the end of the, cleanup day or whatever. But I think that your idea of the adoption island is more attractive than the adopt the street idea anyway. So I think if we're gonna go off with one, I'm gonna vote on your idea of adoption island.
Okay, because I just think it's,
Yeah.
especially in the business area.
Right. Those I know, yeah, those little because they're not full islands, right? They're just little
Right.
kind of things off of the sidewalk. Like
Right.
little peninsulas, I guess.
Right.
So Mr. Mosby, is there anything that we have to draft for that, or is that just something that in the next council meeting we would motion for you to kind of start looking into? How would you prefer us to do it?
Well, if there are going to be parameters that you would want to be uniform parameters, that would probably be something that should be discussed, unless you just want those to be done by administration. If council wanted to do it, then it would either be passed, it would be most appropriate to pass that kind of a thing in an ordinance. A motion would be appropriate if we just said, okay, we just want to, set up we just want administration to set up guidelines, pertaining to, adopt an island or adopt a plant. That's basically what would be most appropriate in that situation.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, just to reiterate, you said a motion would be most appropriate?
Right. If you just wanted administration to do it, then a motion would be fine.
What are the parameters that you would need to be set up?
Well, again, it would depend on what either council is looking for, or, if there are certain things that they were saying, if a business is going to, for example, if council wanted to say, if a business is going to maintain either an island or, a pot, these are the things that they wanted these particular organizations or businesses to do. It would probably be most appropriate to do it from the form of an ordinance. If council is just saying, okay, administration, just set up these ordinances, not ordinances, but set up this policy or these guidelines, then in that sense, it would just be a motion.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I'm fine with doing it either way. I think what would be easier for you? What would you prefer? Because I've never dabbled in the world of helping to write ordinances or getting that started. So I'm totally fine with, like Miss Underwood said, learning something new, but I am just not quite sure how to go about that.
Yeah, basically, if it is something that I think a motion would probably be most appropriate, and that gives myself and the mayor, the latitude that we need to set up the guidelines as to how the program would be run.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good. I will figure out a motion to say for Monday then for that. All right. Thank you, Mayor Nichols, for that idea. I appreciate it. Ms. Zorber, are you okay to
No
head
problem.
back?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Are you okay to head back to number 1 from the agenda?
Yeah, it's in your email box.
Okay, let me check it out real quick. So
Is that what you were talking about?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
because well, this is so okay. So in section 2 of this, I'll read it out loud since I know some people don't have it, but it says that the funding sources are as indicated, yet not limited as below. Donations, gifts, contributions, and fundraising proceeds explicitly made for city housing, home ownership and projects, grants awarded for down payment assistance for those interested in purchasing a home within the city limits of North College Hill. I could be wrong, but is that the only section that talks about how you can qualify for this?
I probably, but I would demand, I mean, the grant is what kicks it off, right? So you'd have to qualify for the grant.
Right, but what would the qualifications for the grant be?
I think those are yet to be determined.
Right, so that's what I was trying to like determine tonight is like what those qualifications would be. And then also like, let's say you do qualify, how much would then you get? What would that money be used for? Like, would it be used for closing costs? Would it be used for down payment? Which in here, it looks like it's saying down payment, but solely provided down payment assistance. If a buyer puts no less than 2% of the total home cost as a down payment, the city will grant them to, okay. Well, if it's okay with you, I'll kind of say what I was sort of thinking. To qualify, I think that it would be I think that it would be simplest and kind of objective to kind of say that if your family is classified under the Ohio I can't think of what it's called, poverty line, if you fall under the Ohio poverty line, that it would then you would qualify for this grant. Does that make sense?
I don't know that that's good parameters because most people who fall beneath the poverty line are not homeowners. I'm not saying exclusively that's the case, but homeowners in North College Hill need to keep their properties up. So I think it should be a little higher than that.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any, sorry to put you on the spot, but did you have any like suggest, because I'm trying to think, so the whole I'm tell me if I'm over explaining this. I'm not sure if you were able to like read up on the homeowners assistance fund, but I think Mr. Hedger and Miss Bailey had kind of put it in place to help people who were struggling to become homeowners, like people below the poverty line, kind of help get housing. So people who, you know, wish to get permanent housing but can't always afford it, kind of thing.
I'm gonna look at it now, but you can keep going for now.
Oh, you're good. But yeah, but actually, we were also kind of thinking that another kind of qualification maybe would be that if you are buying a house that was like most recently previously owned by somebody who was renting it out, that was a rental property. So to qualify for the grant, you would have to be buying a house that was like you're buying it from a rentee or a person who rents it out, if that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that very well. So that way it promotes long-term home ownership and not you know, not as much transiency.
I thought there was something in here that said you had to own the home for, I don't know, like 3 or 5 years, or you had to pay it back, but I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see
But
that.
I thought there was some type of parameter around, like you can't just come in and apply for this and then sell your house in 2 months and skate out with a little bonus.
Yeah, I don't see that, but I like that clause.
Right. I almost wonder if we need to, I shouldn't use the term need, if we are able to use like, I almost want to use an outside group as, and for lack of a better term, like the screening process
Okay.
that awards the grants. And I don't know who that would be, but I don't think it should be council. I don't think it should be the administration. I think it should be, I don't know if like the CIC or that CRA or whatever LMNOP group, some group needs to, I think, look at this. And maybe they even do it blindly without even a name on it, right?
Right.
So that
Is there a reason that you're thinking that?
Yeah, just for the anonymity part of it, for the most objective perspective. I don't know.
Okay. What, because I was kind of thinking, what if it's a kind of appointed committee that could do it anonymously? So I agree. Well, especially because there's such a history of oh my gosh, why am I blanking on so many names? On institutional racism within like the housing market and in real estate. So I definitely think it's important to keep things like, you know, race and names off of the application.
Nepotism.
What was that?
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah,
that's a good point.
And
You're right.
That's what I'm more concerned about than anything else. It would be the nepotism.
Right, that's a good point. No, I think you guys are right. I think that sounds like a good idea for a third party. So, Mr. Mosby, do you have any suggestions for a possible third party or anything that could, you know, be the screening process?
Not immediately. I don't think so. I think what you had mentioned earlier, Ms. Anderson, I think would be the key, which is to first set up what would be the guidelines, and that might be able to kind of help figure out, you know, who might be best. I mean, it could be, although I know we have a lot of you know, people that are volunteering for different organizations, but you know, it could be a blend of people, one perhaps from the chamber, you know, one from the CIC, one appointed by, you know, the mayor. It could be something like that. But I think that basically what would need to happen would be for the parameters to be determined first. And then that way you can, you know, you can use that to kind of decide who might be best to choose, you know, for that special, for if you wanted to use a third party. One thing I was going to mention though, however, when you were speaking earlier, you know, I think when we were speaking, we talked about what you had mentioned, which is we were trying to see if there is a way that we could incentivize some of our owners of our rental property to basically sell their properties to prospective homeowners that would live here for an extent, you know, obviously for an extended period of time. And the reason we were doing that is because we have such a high percentage of rental property right now in North College Hill. And if there was a way that we could encourage them, being the landlords, to sell, then that might be one way to help reduce that percentage.
Okay. So does anybody object to the stipulation that you have to be buying like, I don't know how to say it, like it's just previously a rental property? Does anybody have an objection to that?
So you're saying it can't be a previous home? I think that's extremely limiting.
So
I don't mind that as one of the criteria, but I wouldn't want that to be a make or break criteria.
I think that it's important that it's a make or break criteria, because the whole point of this homeowners fund is that we're trying to increase people who are going to stay in North College Hill, make it their home, get involved in the community. And I think you can't do that if you have, a ton of people who are just renting it for the time being, which nothing wrong with renters. We have some great renters in North College Hill. But I think if you can encourage permanent home ownership, I think that that's better, especially for what this, what the whole fund was originally intended for. Yeah, Ms. Blythe, what's up?
It just crossed my mind, Madam Chair. The system that you're talking about, are you really counting on a certain amount of landlords to want to sell a house to their tenant? Because a lot of landlords are in it to be a landlord. That might limit it versus maybe a young couple, 22, 25 years old, wanting to buy their first house in the city. Because if you rely just on landlords relinquishing their houses, we probably won't have a large percentage of people, if I'm understanding it correct. Thank you.
Well, yeah. So that's what Mr. Mosby is kind of getting at, was incentivizing the owners of the rental properties by possibly using the funds to, like, maybe pay for the closing costs for them, or maybe, something like that, to kind of incentivize them into selling it. So that's what I think Mr. Mosby is kind of getting at. And I think, based on, I'm sure you guys remember, because I very much remember, I was a little intimidated by the meeting where we had a lot of people who do own rental properties who came and were very upset about this. I think that I don't know if we'll have that much trouble finding people selling their rental properties. I know just on our street, we've had 2 houses in the last, I want to say like 3 years. I'll have to double check with my mom, but in the last like 3 years that were recently owned they were recently used as rental properties, and they now have permanent, families in them. And so I don't know if it will be as difficult as we think it may be. And if it is, we can always revisit it in, say, 5 years or however long, and say, oh, hey, we're not finding as much applicants on this, let's change the parameters. But I think for the intent of promoting permanent home ownership in North College Hill, I think it's important to put that stipulation on it. Yeah, Ms. 16.
I'm not sure I completely understand, but I think incentivizing property owners is definitely vital for this, but I'm not sure that that's the only target that we should aim to capture here. But I think in incentivizing property owners, we've got to think of some very strong parameters to kind of draw them out. I do think that property owners they target North College Hill because it is affordable. Right. I think we have some advantages just in the timing of the real estate market all over the tri-state area, because real estate is very lucrative right now, and people are asking people, hey, would you like to sell your properties? Mm-hmm. And people are opting out of their properties just because it's such a huge return. Right. But the downfall of that is then you have to have very sustainable income to actually come into a property, and that usually doesn't target younger crowds. So I think it's just about putting your head to the table and together to figure out what it is that we can do to incentivize property owners. Right. But I don't think it should be limited to that. Maybe garner off a portion of the resources to that group of people, and then also do some other stipulations for other homeowners that are pre-existing.
Okay.
Because you want to do both. You don't, I guess, I don't want to say you don't. It seems to me a better, well-rounded offering to our city to try to help all groups of people and not just property owners that rent out.
So you're saying like you're saying maybe part of the money go to, like, if there's a family who is still paying off their mortgage kind of thing, like part of the fund being available for them to apply to? Or are you saying not to incentivize the owners of rental properties, but just make the funds available for the homeowners who are coming in and buying it? I'm not totally following you.
I wasn't exclusively saying any of that. Like, just think about all of those ideas. Specifically, more people who are interested in buying, like paying off some of the closing costs for new home owners. Any way that it can help, but not limited to. Maybe that's the way that we build the criteria for being able to receive the resources. But in being more inclusive, I feel like will help a broader group of people without making it too lenient, or just it should have some restrictions enough that we are targeting the specific people that we want to target, and that would be to some of the rubric to draw out property owners, especially landlords who are not really taking care of their property, or even just landlords who want to lend or sell the property to someone who is going to be a more permanent stay, so we don't have the turnover that we currently have.
So that just brought up two ideas in my head, because you were saying and I think in your in your first point about like the financial stability and how can we kind of ensure that they'll be able to continue as homeowners, would we want to add kind of a stipulation where like there needs to be a credit check done and they have to pass a financial kind of credit check thing?
They wouldn't get a home loan if they didn't pass a credit check, would they?
Right. But I mean, there are also, I could be wrong, but there I feel like are also sometimes people who may get a home loan who might not totally be, fit to actually get it.
I think in our climate right now, I can share this article with you. In our real estate market right now, I think people who are getting homes right now, their credit scores have to be pretty intact and their work history has to be pretty solid, especially since COVID and our current real estate atmosphere, like the market.
Right, but I just want to make sure that this isn't just for this year or this climate, but this can be sustainable for 5-10 years from now. But yeah, I mean, we can always come back to that point if somebody thinks of another idea later. There's something else that you had said that, we could also possibly make it that within the fund there are 2 grants available. There can be one for a higher amount, where if you're buying a property from somebody who is currently renting it out, that you get X plus 1 or X plus whatever. And then if you're just buying a property and you fit into the criteria, then you get X.
Yes, that's kind of what I was thinking when I was saying like maybe portion it out. But I think the most difficult task that we'll have is trying to determine what is going to draw someone who owns an existing property for rent to sell, because that's their income. That's part of their income. I mean, a lot of people are in property management for the residual income or even just the main income. So,
right. And I mean, if we get, one person to sell their property from this that they're currently renting out, I mean, we get one person. And if we don't, then we've encouraged other homeowners with the other part of the grant. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not gonna let go of that incentivizing renters to sell. I just think that it's so, like, that's kind of what I think the original hope was for this, was to kind of want permanent homeownership and, to kind of make North College Hill less of a renters community and more of a homeowners community. I saw Miss Orb first. Do you want to go ahead?
So the first thing I'd like to say is we have to make sure that we run that by Mr. Dieters and make sure we can do that.
Definitely, yeah.
Damn it, I had a second thing and now it's gone.
Oh, sorry, I talk a lot.
It's not you, it's all me. Gone. I'll tell you, I'll put my hand up if I think of it again. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead, Miss Blythe.
Again, like I asked, will part of the people we're attracting, will any of them be like first-time homeowners? Will that be a section of the people?
So I don't know. So that's something, I mean, we can talk about. We can make that one of the stipulations. I personally don't see that there's a need for it to be first-time homeowners. I mean, I think
I disagree. I firmly think it should be first-time homeowners.
Okay.
I mean, that's what this community is based. I mean, we are a small starter home community.
Okay.
That's exactly what we are. And if you can't help those people getting into those, just starting off in the homeownership world, I don't know. But again, the established people that are on their fourth and fifth house wouldn't need it. I mean, it is the group that's just starting off into this arena of owning a home.
I agree with Ms. Zorb, and
I do too.
What we also need to consider, even with that, we do understand that people do fall on hard times. So if we want to extend it beyond first-time buyers, maybe it's somebody who had a foreclosure, fell on bad luck, and now they're back at an opportunity where they can repurchase again. And if they want to be here, as long as it's not that thing where I'm buying multiple homes.
That's where I was kind of getting at, was I don't want to cut it off to people who, because I mean, you can have a family who is moving here from, wherever outside of Ohio, and this is their first home in Ohio, and they still have young families, and so I just think that, I mean, I think that that's getting, and I also, the other thing I was going to say too is I don't know if we want this to kind of be like a starter home sort of thing, because I do think that that's awesome that North College Hill is often a place for starter homes, but is that, pushing for that permanent residency where you're going to raise your kids and you're going to want them to go to the schools and you're going to want them to play in the parks, if it's just a starter home for young couples? I'm sorry, Mystic Scene, I cut you off.
No, I mean, I think starter homes are what they are, and home owners usually will sell to the highest bidder to their benefit. I don't think that we can preempt that part of it, but 5 to 10 year stays are still better than turnover every other year for new leases for bad property owners. So that still aids in us looking at it long term. I agree with Mayor Nichols that we need to consider For first-time home buyers, we need to consider those that fell in hard times, because we kind of need to use this in tandem with what's going on in the world right now. So people who are getting their loans in forbearance or whatever the government is extending for them to like kind of put their mortgages on hold, when those release, they'll put into the back of the end. Maybe that's an incentive that I think they're offering them to put those payments at the end of their loans. So this is their opportunity to kind of hold on to their properties and do some, just to incentivize long-term home ownership in North College Hill. What does that look like? In 5 to 10 years is definitely better than a new tenant every year. I have a property next to me, and literally I've had a new tenant every single year for probably the past 5 or 6 years.
Right. So I don't know if you could answer this, Mr. Mosby. This might be a question for Mr. Dieters, but do you know if it's possible, if in the document that we're creating, if we can put kind of like this is what you have to qualify for the grant, and this is what we would want you to, we're looking for first-time homeowners, but it does not have to fit into this bubble kind of thing.
I guess the wise thing, of course, would be to establish a criteria. That criteria you wouldn't want the criteria itself is going to be discriminatory to some extent, but it's that extent that would be, brought into question. We would need to bring Mr. Dieters in, I think, just to get his feedback or insight on it. But as long as the criteria is being applied equitably, I think the council has the latitude to determine what that criteria is going to be. I think there are some things, though, that need to be taken into consideration. We have a couple of things. Number one, we have older housing stock here in the city. Now, of course, people are buying it. I mean, I think everybody here knows, we've heard, that there have been some people who have sold their homes and they've gotten actually some pretty good prices. But I will say this, there's a gentleman who has done a lot of extensive work on, first ring suburbs. And one of the points that he brought up, and he actually showed North College Hill, he showed our valuation, our property valuation, in 2008, before the housing bust, if you will. And that housing valuation was about 137 million. And today, which is 2021, we're at 125 million. So we haven't even gotten back to those pre-housing bust levels, if you will. So we still have a ways to go, as far as our property valuations are concerned. And as I mentioned, we have a much older housing stock. So I think that those things do have to be taken into consideration. But if there's a way to obviously, incentivize people to, purchase, I think that would be something, again, that council could determine, on their own. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have the latitude to do that.
Okay. Ms. Dixon.
I was going to say that those numbers that you were talking of, that primarily depends on how you get to those, recovering what our previous estimate value of the homes in our city it depends on how many people foreclosed. So then the appraisal values of those homes. So for me, more recently, and the reason I'm aware of this is because I was interested in refinancing at a lower interest rate, and I would have had to, or I did have to get a appraisal of my home. So then that helps register my home to be of higher value through Hamilton County. So currently my home still has the same value I actually purchased in 2008 that it did years ago. And so then it depreciated. And then to be able to get that back up, I would have to, so it's a little bit of a twist because of so many homes that have been foreclosed on as people in this next quarter, like financial quarter. If we could, check with Hamilton County to see where we net out at as people have refinanced and homes are bought and sold at higher values, then those numbers should easily and quickly come up and get what we, at least where we were before, if not better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also important to note, though, I mean, those numbers might not stay up forever too. So I think, like, I don't know. I think it's a tricky situation, and I think either way, I think if this conversation were to go further, we would need Mr. Dieters, because there's, no matter what we say, we're going to be saying, is this allowed? So I think I'll ask Mr. Dieters to come to next month's meeting. I want to give Mr. Mosby some time at the end to talk really quick. So I'm going to, if it's okay, I'll kind of pause the talk on the Homeowners Assistance Fund and ask Mr. Dieters to come and talk with us through it for next meeting, for next month. And that's the perfect transition. So for June, I was hoping to have our meeting by inviting different business owners around North College Hill to our meeting to kind of give us a rundown on what their plan is for development, what their plan is for sanitation and for cleanliness, and what their plans for their business are in North College Hill. With kind of the discussion from tonight, I'll push that to July, so that way we can continue this discussion. I think that this is much more important to kind of set up the parameters around this fund and kind of get that moving. And then we'll worry about past July once we get there. That's way far ahead, so we'll worry about that then. And then really quickly, Mr. Mosby, do you want to jump into updates on recreation?
Sure. I'm just taking a quick note. Thank you. I wanted to not to spend too much time, because as you pointed out, I know our time is running short, but I just had a meeting today with Hamilton County, and we were talking specifically about Marshall Peter Dumley Memorial Park. And so I wanted to provide an update with that. So as you all know, we have been looking at that for, the splash pad. We'd already put some money into purchasing some of the new playground equipment, which is the inclusive playground equipment plus the new surface. This afternoon, when we had our meeting, two things came up. Number one, there was an amount of money that was given to the city in terms of CDBG dollars that initially had been earmarked for acquisition and demolition. We did not use those funds for the acquisition, or the demolition of the baseball building. And so therefore those funds could be repurposed. And the amount of money for that is approximately $55,000. Additionally, I had applied for a grant to try to do some improvements to Stapleton Park using COVID funding. But I was told that we could not use the money for Stapleton Park because of the fact that Stapleton Park was in a floodplain. However, it was brought to my attention that we could still use those funds, particularly if we were going to use them for a park, because they certainly qualify for COVID funding as a park. So when you add the $75,000 and the $55,000, it comes out to about $130,000 that would be available to use toward Marshall Peter Dumley Memorial Park. And so we also had a discussion or a meeting with JMA, who was our engineering consultant. and they are putting together what we would call phase 1 of that park, which would include the removal of the older playground equipment, installation of newer equipment, as well as installation of the newer surface. We were also talking about adding an awning, and then also some green space, some trees toward the front that would line basically Simpson inside the park, of course, but some smaller trees that would provide some shade for that as well. The catch is that everything that we're doing has to be done by the end of September of this year, so September of 2021. So that means that basically what we're going to have to do is to make sure that we get the RFP out. Then as we get bids that come in, once we get the bid, we'll have to get them to make sure that the playground equipment is ordered. And then they have to at least, be, they have to be on their way to installing the equipment by that time. And basically the money is going to be used, or we will receive the money on a reimbursement basis. So it's not going to be the county will not be the agent for us, and neither will they just give us the money for us to use on our own. So we have to expend the money first, and then they will reimburse us. But of course, the good news is, though, that that's still money that's available to help us transform Marshall Peter Dumley Park. So we would use that money as that phase 1, as I mentioned, and then we could focus, and at the same time, we could focus on raising additional funds for the splash pad, which would be phase 2.
All right, thank you. Ms. 16, is that a new hand raise, or did you just have that up from earlier? Oh, okay. Well, that answers my question. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Mosby. Yeah, I will make sure to talk to Mr. Dieters about joining us for next month. But I'm glad that this is kind of on our radar now. Ms. Zorb.
I was wondering where we are with the Tree City.
I haven't done much with that. I know that that Mayor Nichols was looking into talking to an arborist. I don't know if you were able to talk to that person.
I was, and he's willing to do that. That's kind of why I'm circling back.
Okay. So I don't know what the next steps are for that. I mean, I've only really caught I think like we talked about it at one meeting that I was at when Amber was the chair. I mean, I can reach out to her and see what I would need to do, but I don't really know what needs to be done for that. I wasn't really given any information on that at all. So I can ask her, but I honestly don't know what anything I would need to do on that. So I can reach out to her and ask her, but no, I mean, what was that?
So that sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Miss Anderson, if I may, Ms. Zorb, who was the person who you spoke with?
I have a new neighbor. I have a new homeowner in my neighborhood.
Okay.
Ooh, look at you.
Because I have tried to reach out to 2 different people, and I just got a third name. But if you've already spoken to him and he's willing, so
Yes, he is not an arborist, but he is a nursery guy instead.
So I thought the stipulation, according to Ms. Bailey, was that they had to be an arborist.
That's what I thought too.
Right.
No, I
It's not even according to Ms. Bailey. I mean, it's according to their, kind of guidelines.
So,
when you establish
and I
the
thought,
board, it has
Ms.
to be an
Nichols, I
arborist.
thought you were the one asking the chiropractor guy if he would do it, because I think he is an arborist.
He said no. So that's why I said I've moved on to like 2 different people. The one gentleman, I just got a new name the other week. So.
Yeah, I was not working towards an arborist. I was working towards an interested
Okay.
citizen.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying towards an arborist. That's what I was asking Mayor Nichols about. So
Either way, I think we still need a citizens on the committee as well.
right. So does
Excuse me.
Here's what I'm thinking, because I don't want to go into budget committee. I will put this on the agenda for next month. I'll talk to Miss Bailey about it, see what all we need, and that way we're not kind of guessing. And then I'll get back to you guys. Sound good? Cool. And then so that we don't cut into Mr. Miller Novak's time, I will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you guys, though. That was a very productive meeting. Thanks, guys.
Miss Anderson, I just want to give you a heads up. I did forward that same document to Miss Blythe and Miss Dugstein because I think they were not on the original email, but everybody else was.
I think maybe I didn't put them on the original email. Okay. For the one that you just sent me, or for the
For the one that I just sent you for the homeownership program.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Mr. Miller Novak, it's all up to you.
Okay, thank you. Before I get started, can someone do me a solid and take meeting minutes today? Anybody? Any volunteers? All right. Well, I guess we'll just watch the movie next week then.
That's
All right.
okay.
Hold on, fella. I was going to get my other laptop because
Okay, I was about to
doesn't
say,
have a word on it. Can you
do it? Okay.
Can you send me the agenda in something other than a PDF so I can type on it?
Yeah. Let me try. Sorry, because the reason I need someone to do it is because my word and everything's like kind of hooked into like our work account. I think it's being worked on right now. I can't get into it. So I think I have the agenda in Word. I think.
I mean, I have a copy of it, Mr. Miller Novak, if in Word, if that's what you.
Do you? Can you send that to Mary Jo then?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. I appreciate it, everybody. I'm trying to.
All right, just a minute.
All right. Well, while he's doing that,
Yeah, I just sent it, so hopefully it should get there shortly.
I did forward around the minutes from last month. Did anybody get those? Everybody get them? Meeting minutes?
Yes.
Chance to
Yeah.
review them? Cool.
Yeah.
Anybody have any problems? Any changes need to be made? No. No objections? Going once? Going twice? 3 times. All right. So, and I guess we'll approve of those meeting minutes. I'll have them. Ron, if you can, I don't know, wherever you save them. And I have them at my folder too, if anybody needs them produced. Well, did everybody get a chance to review the agenda for today? Good. Ron, did you, I think Ron had contacted me earlier today and said there's something we need to add to this agenda.
Right, we can, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, we can just talk about it under number 4, since it would be basically along that same line, the rental registration assessment, because it is a, as I mentioned, it's a decertification.
Works for me. I'm fine with that. Does anybody have any objections to the agenda If not, we'll just start moving through. And sorry for my rush tone, everybody. I had one of those days. So I'm just trying to catch up here. So I didn't hear any objections. So first up is public hearing for the 2022 tax budget. I'm going to pass the mic to Ms. Hall.
I did send the tax budget out to everyone today. There are a few changes that I do need to make, which is just adding a couple projects for 2022 that we just received this morning from our engineers. I'm sorry. Okay. So Hamilton Avenue is on there, but I need to add the construction projects for Joseph and Dodgen and Bobolink Drive for 2022. So with the exception of those two changes, the tax budget is basically, accurate and everything. So I will get out an updated version tonight. I'll just add those two on there. But other than that, again, the tax budget is a formality. It's something that, the county just uses to basically see what's being expensed against the property tax revenues that we receive. And then council is expected to vote by July 15th per the Ohio Revised Code. And then by July 20th, I have to submit, the tax budget to the county. Sometime in August, usually the county auditor gets back to me and sends what our expected tax rates revenues will be for the upcoming year for 2022. And again, that is based on this tax budget. So then council will be expected to approve those tax rates, and that is what gets added to our 2022 budget for our property taxes. So that's just, once again, just a once over or overview of what the tax budget is. You can feel free to look through it. It's basically the same thing as our 2021 budget. It just shows our expenditures and our revenues that go against those property tax revenues. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those for you tonight.
Ms. Hall, did you say Dodgen and what other streets still needed to be added?
Joseph and
and
Bobolink.
Dodgen, and then Bobolink Drive. Those are the two other road construction projects that are on schedule for 2022.
I'm sorry, could you, I couldn't hear you again.
Oh, no problem. It is Joseph and Dodgen and Bobolink Drive that I need to add. Those are two, whoops, sorry, I muted myself. Those are two projects that are scheduled in 2022.
So I'm trying to write up the minutes and I think I'm confusing myself. I heard you say two, but then I heard you say Dodgen, Joseph, and Bobolink, which is three.
Okay. No, right. So Joseph and Dodgen are one project.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
I'm
That
sorry.
makes sense.
I should have
Yep.
clarified that. My apologies.
All right.
That's one project. And then the other project is Bobolink Drive.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
For those of you who are just on this is like your first time doing this, as Ms. Hall had said, the tax budget is the budget of the revenue. So we're not looking at the expenses, although she has to include it on there. And more specifically, we're actually looking at the property tax revenues, which composes about slightly more than 10% of our budget for our general revenues. So it is not an extremely large amount, but it is something that we do have to do. It's mandated by the county has to report to the state. So it's mandated by the state, and that's why we have to do it. And so the public hearing is for the opportunity for not only you, but also the public, if they wanted to either have any input or ask any questions about it.
I mean, does this count as our public hearing?
It does, yes, sir. there was an announcement, I put out an announcement for the public hearing, for people to attend if they so desire.
Mr. Mosby, for the record, where were those announcements placed?
In both our website and in social media as well.
So no announcements in newspapers?
No.
Well, okay. I guess we're done with that then. That seemed brief. And unless anybody has any objections, I want to move on to the next topic. All good?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Yeah, I would have just took silence as consent,
Yep.
but that works too. Finance topic. First quarter 2021 report.
Yes, I have that
Yep,
ready.
that's
If
all
I-
I get.
Yes, if I can share my screen, that's. Do we still have the Keith on there where I can share my
be.
screen?
Yep, I'm making you the co-host now.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, not yet.
There you go, Ms. Hall.
All right, thanks. All right, can everyone see my screen?
I cannot yet.
Yes? No?
No. I can't. Can anyone else see it?
I can see it.
I can.
I can see it.
Okay. Okay. Then I will roll on. Okay, so on this screen here, let me move this out the way. Is showing all of our funds combined. You can see that our revenues are lagging a little bit behind. And again, that is because we did not receive our property taxes for some of our other funds where that is the bulk of the revenue that supports those funds. So the property taxes did come in April. Remember, I said last time that that will not be reflected in the first quarter. So it kind of looks like our expenses are outpacing our revenues, but our revenues will be catching up to our expenses beginning in the second quarter. Additionally, we had additional expenses in January with our Galbraith Goodman project that caused revenues to be a little bit higher, as well as that third pay in January as well. So that's why January's expenses are so much higher than what you see for February and March. And just looking at the general fund revenues versus expenses through March, as you can see, our revenues are pretty much on pace with our expenses. There were additional expenses in March above and beyond what we saw in February, and those were due to the items I have listed here. We made our first payment for our building coding activities in March, and that was for the first 3 months of the year. We made a payment for the Pies Park lease. There were some building improvements over at the fire department that came in around $8,000, as well as our payment to ICRC, which was $11,000. Those are the things that kind of set the expenses a little bit higher in the general fund in March. And this here is just an overview of our general fund revenues. I did want to note that I did reclass our rental registrations compared to last month. So if you're looking at the presentation I sent last time, you'll see that the charges for services was higher. And that's because I misclassed the rental registration as a charge for service versus a permit. So this month, you'll see how I reclassed it. It's in the permit line now, and then the charges for services is just basically reflecting what we are receiving for at-fault accident fees and our franchise fees from cable services. So all of our rental registration fees will now be reflected on the permits line. So if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. There was a net revenue decrease, and that was due to just our income taxes not coming in as high as it came in February. So, and again, that could potentially be because people know that there's an extension, and so they probably just didn't file and are waiting till the the last minute. So for general fund expenditures through March, you can see that we had pretty much the same expenditures in March as we did in February. Again, salaries and benefits were higher in January because of the third pay. We saw higher other expenses in March, and those were due to the items that I have listed there for building and coding, Pies Park, improvements at the fire department, and ICRC. And just to look at our overtime, just wanted to reiterate that in the May 2021 report, you will see a jump, and that is for a retirement payout for police. Again, some of the overtime is due to court and some other covering of full-time officers that are not on staff. So that's basically all that I have for the first quarter. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen now and pass it back to Mr. Miller Novak.
Thanks, Ms. Hall. All right, well, so we're now, Mary Jo, are you good? I don't want to move too fast for you. You all right?
Yeah, because that's going to say see attached. So yes.
Okay. Exhibit 1. Well, great. Then we'll move on to number 4. I think we have 2 separate items under item number 4. Ron, do you want to introduce these 2? I know the one was with the assessments on the registration fees, but I'll let you go.
Yes, but I'm assuming that you're going to do number 3, the supplemental appropriation. Is that correct?
It's number 4 on my, I think you might have the old agenda where we
Okay.
added something.
Oh, that's right, because you put the, adoption of the minutes. I'm sorry. Okay. So yes, I would actually turn this over again to Ms. Hall so she can explain the supplemental appropriation and what is being done and why it's being done.
Okay, Ms. Hall, you got to do everything today. It's up to you.
I'm a one-woman show tonight. Okay, so I emailed everyone the supplemental appropriation that I want to propose to council. This is just my way of communicating certain changes with the budget. The first tab, if you're looking at the spreadsheet, just shows some of the changes in revenue we've had. So we've had an increase basically in some at-fault accident fees above and beyond what we budgeted for. Miscellaneous income, and that's basically due to some insurance refunds and refunds that we have received. So we wanted to increase that miscellaneous income line to reflect the increase in revenue we have received as well. And there's also a decrease in the vacant property that I'm requesting because we did not receive in the first 3 months what we budgeted for. I know that the properties that did not pay as agreed or as we have in our ordinance, I would rather say, are on the assessment rolls. So I would like to reduce that budget just to reflect that decrease, or that we did not receive as much in the vacant property revenue. As far as the rental property registration, we did receive about, I want to say $400 more than what was budgeted. But because of the down payment assistance fund ordinance, I'm requesting that we reduce that budget by half, because I believe the ordinance requires that we put 50% of what we collect into the down payment assistance fund. So you'll see on the next line where I would like to increase revenue in the down payment assistance fund by the same amount that I would like to reduce the rental property registration in the general fund. Then in the police levy, again, there were some, I'm sorry, what I'm asking for is to increase reimbursements to the police levy here. So $900, because there were some past due training expenses that came through that we needed to cover. So some of that revenue that we're transferring into the police levy is coming out of the miscellaneous income line, where there were some insurance payouts that we received from a police cruiser that was totaled. So because we received that, we needed, I'm basically requesting that we use some of that revenue to cover the cost of police training that we did not pay in a previous year, and then cover the purchase of a replacement police cruiser, which you see there at $4,145. And then finally, the increase in the street levy for revenues, we received a reimbursement from Mount Healthy for their portion of, was that Leboido?
It was,
Mr.
yes.
Mosby? Yes. Okay. So for the Leboido project, so we received that in, I want to say in January, but I want to reflect that in our budget. So I'm asking that we increase the budget to reflect that revenue there. The last three lines are basically my way of trying to plan for these upcoming projects that are in our pipeline. I'm asking council to approve a reduction in the fund balance in the street levy fund, to draw down some of that money in the fund balance and use that to put money for our portion of the Hamilton Avenue project that we're expected to pay that potentially at the end of the year, potentially at the beginning of 2022. But just to have that in our budget in the event that we end up having to come up out of pocket of with that entire amount of $590,000. Speaking with our engineers today, there may be grants that will come through to offset, and we may not have to pay that much, but I would like for us to be prepared in the event that we don't receive any of those grants to cover our portion of Hamilton Avenue. The second part is the $260,000 for the Sundale Avenue project that we are working on this year. And again, that is for the part of the project that was over budget. So essentially, I'm asking council to allow us to draw down the fund balance of $850,000 to cover those two items that we are potentially on the hook for this year for those road projects. And if we scroll down to the expenditure line items, I can walk you through that. I'm also requesting that we increase expenditures to cover our building and zoning line. And that is because we had to issue refunds to property owners who paid us rental registration fees that were not in the city of North College Hill. So they paid us and we needed to pay them back. So we issued refunds, and now that budget line item is over budget because we had to pay them back that money. So just asking for an increase in the budget just to cover those refunds that we paid out. The down payment assistance fund, we're wanting to appropriate the $34,200 as council has prepared in the ordinance that we issue down payment assistance to people who are looking to move into the city. So just increasing the budget, because right now there's no budget in there. So, and again, that's per council's ordinance. If we move on down to the police levy, just a request of that increase in expenditures for the police training that we had to pay, as well as the purchase of the police cruiser. So just so you understand, I'm asking that council not only just increase the revenue in the police levy, but also increase that expense that's going against that revenue. And then again, in the street levy fund, I'm sorry, the street fund, this is separate from the street levy fund, I'm sorry. I'm asking that we increase the overtime budget as well as the traffic light maintenance budget by $2,000 each. And that's because if you recall, we had those snowstorms. We did not budget for Public Works to have overtime, and they ended up using quite a bit of overtime. So just asking that we increase the budget in that those line items to cover that cost, as well as I think there was some traffic maintenance that we did not budget for, but that ended up getting paid for this year as well. So, and then finally, the street levy fund, where that expense, I'm asking that we also appropriate that expense for the Hamilton Avenue and Sundale Avenue project, so that we can be able to, so that way we can basically come up with that money and by the end of the year or whenever we need to, regarding either Hamilton Avenue or Sundale. I know Sundale, I believe, is scheduled to begin, I want to say May or June of this year, right, Brian?
June.
I'm not sure.
Right,
June.
we're gonna
Okay,
have the
yeah.
pre-construction meeting this week.
Right. So we'll need to be able to, prepare for that expense soon. As far as Hamilton Avenue, again, I'm expecting to see an invoice for up to that 590,000 by the end of the year, potentially into, January of 2022. So if you have questions about this, again, this is just my way of being transparent and letting you know of the changes that are happening with the approved budget, and asking that we make that council approve these changes to the budget to meet these important needs that are coming up.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, that's all with my going over that. If anyone has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have one. Ms. Hall, I heard you mention something about there might be more grants out there. Is that something that we have to apply for? Is that something that they'll give to us if we qualify? How does that part work?
So our engineers are currently we've applied for, I want to call it the LTIP grant, and then she's looking into other grants that we may qualify for through Hamilton County. So we'll know whether we have received grant money to offset that. We may not even have to use all of the 590,000. We will have to come out of pocket for some of the cost, but we're trying to make sure we are exhausting all of our options to reduce our liability, the amount of money that we have to come up out of pocket for that project. But in the event that we don't qualify for any of those grants, we want to be able to still pay for our portion of Hamilton Avenue. So
I get it, and I appreciate that. I just didn't know if that was something that we needed to do, or if it was being done.
yep, it's being done.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody have
questions?
any other questions? Okay, do we just want to move the discussion up to full council then? Yay. All in favor?
Sure.
And anyone opposed?
I'm sorry, I couldn't fix my mute button. I'm good with it.
Okay, it's so quiet today. Marjorie, you okay with it? Move it up.
I'm all good. Let's do it.
Lorie's here, right? Lori, you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we're good. We'll move it on up. So you'll send it to Mr. Graver then, Ms. Hall and Mr. Mosby?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that move us to the rental registration, or is there anything else on point 4 you need to talk about, Ms. Hall?
What is point 4? I'm not looking at the agenda.
The supplemental
The
appropriation.
supplemental
Oh,
appropriation.
no,
So you-
no, that's everything. I provided everything to council, so.
okay. Well, then the next point's the rental registration assessment you wanted to discuss. So I don't know if you or Ron are going to present that, but
The rental registration, basically, I kind of touched on it when I was discussing the supplemental. There are property owners that did not pay the $150 at the time that it was due. So there's about 14 pages of the residential properties that are on the roll of people who did not submit that payment for the rental permit that we will be assessing to the property. And then the second document is for the commercial properties that did not send in that I believe it's $150 as well for the commercial properties that are being rented. So
Ms. Hall, I'm sorry, I missed the numbers. Could you tell me how many property owners did not pay the 150? Ballpark me.
oh my gosh,
Say that.
there's 14 pages. So
Oh, I thought you threw out a number. I'm sorry. I
no.
thought
So there's a lot. There's a lot on there. So
more than 50.
yes, ma'am.
Much more.
Much
Okay.
more. I want to say maybe 200 to 300, but I don't want to put a concrete number on there. So
All right, thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I thought you had said a number and I thought I missed it. My bad.
So what happens then? Like, since they didn't pay it?
so this what I sent to you all this afternoon are the roll. So it has all the properties that did not pay the $150. What happens is council then votes to send this to the county auditor, and this, that amount gets assessed to their property taxes. So we end up collecting it as we collect property taxes. So that's essentially how we remedy not receiving that $150. So
There are so many properties on that list. I'm just really blown away. Like,
yes.
a lot.
Correct. And it's
Well,
more than $150 too. So
Right,
it'll be
people don't
because
read their
$400.
mail.
Right, it's the administration fees that are assessed as well. So
Correct.
it balloons the amount of money. So yes.
People don't read their mail. Essentially what happens. And so Marjorie, it's the same thing that happens. Like the process is the same when people don't cut their grass, and we have to cut the grass, and we assess their property tax with the value of that service. Right, guys? It's the same process. That's the way I understand it, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, anything else on that?
Yes, there's just the one more minor piece of legislation, which is a resolution actually decertifying. These are two properties. Last year there was a decertification. These were two properties that were not included in that. And so basically basically what we would be doing is crediting or actually reducing that assessment, removing it from their tax roll. And there are a total of 2 properties on here, and the total decertification amount is $300.
Mr. Mosby, can you go into a little bit more detail? So are you saying that, and I can't believe I just asked you to go into more detail. The irony is just incredible there. But you're saying that 2 properties were on the rental registration list and now they're not rental properties? Is that in a nutshell?
These are, it does look to be that they were rental registrations, and because the amount that was due was $50, and then they were also assessed the late fee at that time, which would have been $100. So the total assessment on the property would have been $150. Now, what has happened and that's a good question, but what has happened even when we increased the rental registration, several property owners who should not have been on the list, had come to us and said, I live here. I'm not renting the property out. So we were able to remove some of those. These just happened to be 2 that were not removed at that time they came and told us about it. And so these would have to be 2 that would be decertified.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this topic?
No, as long as I had mentioned before, if that is okay, I will just simply go ahead and forward that, as we mentioned, to Mr. Wald for inclusion on the agenda.
Does anybody object moving it up?
Sounds good to me.
I'm good.
I'm good too. Laree?
I'm fine, thank you.
Laree's good. Mary Jo?
You betcha.
All right. We're unanimous. Moving it on up. Okay. Last on the agenda, which is obviously probably the biggest item. It's time to start talking about the salary ordinance, which is a little bit of work, obviously. So I figured we'd go into executive session to talk about the employees' salaries and their merits and things like that, as to protect their dignity. So unless anybody has any objections to doing so, and I don't know.
Matt,
Go ahead.
the logistical part, I did not set up a meeting. Keith, are you able to do that for us? Or do I have to do it?
I am not able to set a meeting up. I apologize. I do not have the permissions to do that.
All right.
Row. Mary Jo, does that mean we can't do it today?
Give me 2 minutes, 1 minute. I don't know if I can or
Okay.
not.
Okay, well, do your best. If you can't, figure it out.
Who all do you want in it?
Everybody here. I mean, Ron, Ari, and the entire committee.
Forget how to do it. I apologize.
It's okay. Take your time. You can do it. I mean, we can wait.
You're gonna see it, but it's gonna come from my work, my real work.
Oh, just a warning for people. Last time I got an email from her work email, went to my spam folder. So check there if you don't see it right away.
Who else did I miss? Arius, Matt, Marjorie, Erica, Larry, Ron, April. All right, I think I just sent it to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll check.
So like Marjorie said, check your spam.
You've been spammed.
You have, I got it. It's in my spam.
Did anyone else get it? Or who didn't
Did
get
receive
it, I
it.
guess.
I don't see it yet.
I have it. It's in my spam.
Oh, there it is. spammed.
I don't have it.
Oh, Tracy, you know what? I'll bet you don't. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
I just forwarded it to Tracy.
You did, okay. It'll get to her faster that way.
Should I go ahead and join that?
Yeah, I think I have it started.
Well, not yet. We got a motion to go
Oh.
in. So,
Even in committee?
yeah, we're a public body. We gotta do everything the same way.
I think Erica already went over. Do you want me to text her and ask her to come back?
No, because we still have a quorum here. I mean, we can still vote on it as long as
Right.
there's
Well, let's just get to it. I'll make a motion. We go into executive session to discuss salary ordinance, salaries.
I'll second the motion.
We don't have an ordinance yet.
let me clean that up.
Okay.
I just want to, because it has to be exact. I motion that we enter executive session to talk about the compensation and employment of one or more public employees.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So that's all four of us remaining. So note that in the minutes.
Who are the
Okay.
four? Wait a minute, hang on. Who are the four?
Everybody but Erica.
So
Me.
Loree, me, Matt, and you.
Okay, got it. So everybody else has their meeting, their notice. Tracy, you got it now?
I do, thank you.
Perfect.
See y'all there.
Okay. See
All
ya.
right, well done. Thank you. Hey there, we're back. Is everybody back in? We missing anyone? Okay, I'm seeing everybody. So I'm gonna motion that we re-enter regular meeting and end executive session. Can I get a 2?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Mary Jo, you good? Is Mary Jo back?
She's here.
Sorry, my audio is all jacked up. I'm here now.
Go. Miss Blythe's back too.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we got y'all. All right, great. So no official business occurred in executive session. No final votes were taken or anything like that. There was deliberation on employment salaries. No decisions will be made today regarding those deliberations. On the contrary, we're going to continue talking about employment salaries at our next committee meeting. The only thing to really report at this point is that Mr. Mosby is going to invite the department heads for fire as well as police, and the finance manager has a wee bit of homework to do, which is a natural course of events after every one of our meetings. So I think we're good. If anybody wants to move to adjourn, we have no more business left on the agenda.
I move to adjourn.
All right, Erica moves to adjourn. Do I have a number 2?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right. I'm just gonna go around. I vote yes.
Hang on, I was typing. Who seconded it?
Me, Marjorie.
Marjorie
Thanks.
did. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm good.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's the whole lot. I'm in favor as well, so we're done. Thanks everybody for
Good night, everyone.
all the
All right,
work
night.
today. I know it was a long meeting. Thanks, Mary Jo, for taking meeting minutes today. Appreciate it.
They will need to be edited, but I'll get them right over to you. Look for them in your spam.
Okay, it's
All
coming
right.
from your work email. Thanks.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.